It's Wednesday. You know what that means. It means another night that Alfred Konuwa and me, Justin LaBar, can close it down with you. Or it's another day after AEW Dynamite where we can narrate your day and help the procrastination all the way. Alfred, we got a lot to talk about tonight. But first, let's just get into a little small talk. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, very well. It's a fun night in sports, not only AEW, but of course the Dodgers and the Cardinals in the playoffs, which I think is going to hurt AEW's viewership. But it's been a good night, and it was a pretty hot ending to a show that I thought was a hot show, especially in terms of the crowd involvement. You know, the crowd would make you think that this was a huge show, but when you look at a lot of what went on, it was kind of not much to write home about until the end and maybe a couple of segments here. They had a good announcement, but it was a great crowd tonight, I thought.
Yes, very hot crowd. They were coming from Philadelphia. They were on the campus of Temple University, I believe. So hot Philly crowd. Yeah, I mean, really, they were into a lot of what happened tonight. They were heavy on the chants. Even in Moxley's entrance, and we'll talk about it when we get there. In the main event ladder match, I saw a few fans get the brunt of a few shots. By accident, a few errant blows that are coming their way. Yet even one guy in the front row holding a kid, it looked like had to duck out of the way. So
that was the most Philadelphia entrance that Jon Moxley could have had.
Yeah, it's a little more interactive maybe than you get at your typical WWE show, if you will. So yeah, a lot to talk about tonight. I mean, there was an announcement that Tony Schiavone made through Tony Khan. There's the casino ladder match where the winner gets to have an automatic title match against Kenny Omega at some point. I mean, we had parking lot brawls. We had our now weekly CM Punk check-in of a promo. The latest from Crazy Uncle Arn.
Yes.
Dan Lambert getting more heat in Philly than a New York Giant could. I mean, it was just a lot to talk about tonight. We will run down Dynamite in just a few moments, but as we always like to do, we do like to get some of the news headlines in there. I know some people kind of go like, well, why do you do news headlines, especially if they're WWE news and a show that's about a Dynamite review? Well, the idea is we're also promoting the site that this podcast is for, Wrestling Inc. So we want to touch on some news headlines that Wrestling Inc. is putting out there. Also, some of those news headlines are what some other people like to hear and like to come on the show and hear Alfred and I talk about, or whoever the guests are. Yeah, I know there's other podcasts through the Wrestling Inc. network that might touch on news, but not everybody listens to everything. So, it's buffet, just like AEW. It's supposed to be a flavor for everybody. So that's what we're going to do here. We will start, though, quickly with the WWE side of the news, starting with NXT 2.0. Last night's episode, Alfred, drew 632,000 viewers, according to Showbuzz Daily. That's down 3% from the previous week. And they were a 0.13 in the key 18 to 49 demo. That's down 7%. Alfred, this is the lowest of the viewership of this NXT 2.0 in its short new history.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be down lower even because they were going head-to-head with the Yankees and the Red Sox in the MLB playoffs, which is a huge game. A lot of people watch that game, and it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest rivalry in all of sports, not even in just baseball, just based on its lineage. And so, yeah, I expected it to go down, especially because NXT 2.0 has also been kind of struggling to hold on to viewers, as you saw last week when they had a big drop-off. So I like the fact that they have Halloween Havoc announced. I think that's going to help, that they have now something to build toward with this NXT 2.0, because this show has just been them throwing a lot of stuff out there, a lot of new stuff, and not really even having much of a direction. Now they're starting to announce a lot of matches for this big TV special, and I think Halloween Havoc should start to turn things around. But I really do think that this brand is in need of more than just these big shows. They really do need some of these main roster stars, and WWE is probably going to realize that sooner rather than later, the more these numbers keep going down.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this Halloween Havoc gets produced. Of course, NXT has been known for pulling out the throwbacks, whether it be Halloween Havocs or Great American Bashes or In Your Houses. They've gone with the nostalgia, but of course, again, this will be the first time they're going with this nostalgia under the new NXT 2.0, under the new brighter look, under the what we're hearing, at least more influence from the Kevin Dunns and the Vince McMahons and Bruce Pritchards of the company. So how it's produced will be something to watch. But I do agree, and just like any promotion, you always need a takeover or some kind of a special to build towards. If you don't have anything to build toward, everything kind of feels really open-ended, really almost kind of like if you're a fan, it's almost like, well, why am I watching? What's the next payoff point? So this is definitely needed. I agree. One person who right now won't be at Halloween Havoc, to best of our knowledge, is Johnny Gargano. Another news item that you can read more about on Wrestling Inc. is Johnny Gargano has removed all WWE NXT references from his social media accounts. So, it used to be, it used to be something like Pro Wrestler, Clevelander, Be Yourself and Outwork, and he had tagged NXT on USA Network for how you can see him. And now it just reads Pro Wrestler, Clevelander, Be Yourself and Outwork. No USA, no WWE NXT. So, it's been rumored that Gargano's contract is in fact going to expire in early December. So, I mean, this certainly, when there's, you got to think that this is some smoke here.
Definitely.
This is a pretty big deal, especially in the time where we're seeing some mass exodus of guys and girls from the company, either by their choice or by WWE's choice.
Yeah, and WWE better think that there's some smoke here. Like, I don't know the full story, but from the outside looking in, we've seen too many instances of WWE people having their contracts go up and then showing up in AEW for me not to believe that, there might be some smoke here. Johnny Gargano might be on his way out. And he's clearly playing with the internet as well and running with these by posting those pictures of the belt and saying what's next. So my heart tells me that he's going to stay maybe in NXT just because of the situation he's in, and he's in a good spot in NXT alongside his wife, and but I don't know. I really don't know. And AEW would be a good fit for Johnny Gargano. The old saying goes, under 6 feet, you get over in AEW. And Johnny Gargano is one of the smaller type of wrestlers who's a great, phenomenal worker. You could argue the best worker in all of WWE. And AEW likes that type of work rate type stuff, and he would fit in like a glove in AEW if he were to go there. But we'll see where this goes. But this is definitely a story.
Well, we say that Johnny would be a great fit in AEW, but at what point is there's no more room to fit in AEW?
I agree.
I mean, Johnny is like an Adam Cole situation in the sense of he's very organically popular. Johnny wrestling is something that really just stuck with him. Obviously, he delivers in the ring. He's very versatile for a guy who was a babyface. The majority of his career throughout the independents leading into his NXT run. He certainly flipped the switch and shown that he can play a very obnoxious, very just want to punch him heel. He can also do the comedy. His name is Johnny Gargano. That is, so he take that name with him. He doesn't have to, go through the name generator. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things you go, well, this would work for AEW. But at the same point, Adam Cole also was an exception too of fitting because he had such history with the guys, of course, he's now back with the Bucks and Kenny and such. I mean, Johnny, it's like, okay, again, where do we toss him in at? And I also think if you're a talent, let's say if you're Johnny Gargano, if there's the ability to stay and still make good money by WWE, at some point you got to go, well, somebody still has to be a star of this show.
Yes.
And if you're running on, and if that means that you got to be the guy that gets to stay, whether it's at NXT or whether they say, look, this NXT is moving in a new direction. This truly is going to be a breeding ground. It's going to be characters. It's going to be WWF Sunday superstars. It's time for Johnny Wrestling to come to Raw or SmackDown, and let's take our best shot with that. At some point, you got to say, well, look, all these other people are leaving. That's room for me now to be a star. So I don't put it past that Johnny knows that his contract information is out there. The office knows his contract information is out there. I don't put it past him playing a little games, playing a little rumored speculation, only to make his resurfacing, maybe a Royal Rumble or something, be that much of a bigger deal.
And this is what he should be doing. Even if he knows in his heart of hearts he's going to be staying in NXT, get your money, Johnny. Like, put it out there that, hey, man, I might be going like some of the other guys did so that you can get more bang for your buck. And I think what you're saying in terms of people leaving and not being around to push, I think that's why Pete Dunne resigned with WWE, is he's looking around NXT like, well, who else are they going to push at the top of this card? I've got a great opportunity now that there's a little bit more room here. And I think Johnny Gargano would be in that same exact boat.
Super chat, which we always encourage you guys to do. We appreciate him. Tony 241-499. He says, I'm at Dynamite and got pushed over by Moxley and Archer during Moxley's entrance, and I loved it. Place was nuts. First live show ever. That's awesome, Tony. Thanks for taking the time to tune into the show, donate some money while you're still there. Assuming you're still there in Philly at the arena. So be safe and enjoy. Yeah, that we'll talk all about that when we get to the main event. A very high energy, high octane main event that was at AEW Dynamite, which we'll get to in just a second after we do this final news item, which is on the AEW side of the aisle, and it has to do with AEW president Tony Khan. He acknowledged in an interview with Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, he acknowledged some of the reports that were floating out on the internet last week, Alfred, about how the EVPs have lost some power and Tony's taking a little more control. And Tony said he did see those reports. And I'm using a quote here. He says, I saw those reports this week, and I thought that was pretty disingenuous stuff from some of the internet wrestling writers because nothing has changed in recent months. He goes on to say that it was a structure change at the end of 2019 where he did take over more of the final decision-making and booking just to have more, final say and control and organization, but noted that all of them still are pitching ideas, very involved with creative and the general motion, and kind of downplayed the narrative that they were being sent to the kids' table, so to speak. So, Tony Khan, I guess if that's the case, again, props to him for addressing it. He's super accessible, for a guy who's, worth over $1 billion and owns a wrestling company and a football, American football team and a European football team. He makes himself very available on social media and internet interviews in general with the press. So good on him to address it and kind of let it come from the horse's mouth of what's the situation.
And it's even more impressive that he's making himself this accessible, given what's going on with Jacksonville Jaguars right now in the NFL, in that they are in the eye of a storm right now, publicly from a PR standpoint. But I don't think there was ever a doubt, at least even among us, that the EVPs, quote unquote, didn't have any power. I never believed that the Cody Rhodes and the Kenny Omegas of the world didn't have any power, and they just stripped them of all their powers and just sent them away. I always believed that there was some form of influence, but the story that Tony Khan confirmed in that he is the alpha, the buck stops with him. He's the head of the table, if you will. That's what I've always believed, in that, yes, of course, the Cody Rhodes and the guys who started this company are going to have some say so, but they're not going to be the final say. They're not booking the company, so to speak. They don't have as much power of Tony. That's what I've always believed. And I'm sure that there are some reports that have kind of gotten out of control. And you know how the internet and Twitter is when they get their hands on a potentially salacious story of these guys losing all their power, then they'll run with it. But I never believed that they lost all their power and that, Tony Khan is in charge and it's just only him. I did believe that Tony Khan has more power than they do, that's what it should be.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, Mike Johnson, I think he missed the opportunity to ask a little more about the Urban Meyer situation.
Yes, he did. That's all I would have been asking about.
Urban Meyer's the next the next one to join. What's he gonna? He's gonna be. He could have been the Joker tonight. He could have.
Well, he's already a Joker. The Jags might go 0-17 this year, ladies and gentlemen. I do have James Robinson in fantasy, and he's been killing it for me lately, though. So shout out to James Robinson. And Marvin Jones screwed up this past week, but he's been really good for me too, based on where I got him in the draft.
Well, and I'll still say, obviously at the end of the day, it matters. You got to win games, but Trevor Lawrence does not look like, we've seen rookie quarterbacks who look like bumbling, fumbling rookie quarterbacks, and it doesn't matter how good they were in college, they get a rude awakening at the speed of the NFL game. Trevor Lawrence doesn't look like he's that far behind. He looks calm and confident more often than not. So
he'll be a superstar.
Indeed. All right, that was your football talk for the show. $5 by Brian Medina says, why do WWE stars just do Impact or AEW? There's still Ring of Honor, NWA, etc. Well, Brian, it's a lot of factors. I mean, obviously, number one is money. Besides WWE, AEW is the next place where there's the most number of high paying spots that are comparable or better than WWE pay. Not saying that Impact doesn't have a few guys that are making what some WWE and AEW guys are, but AEW have the most spots to offer that. So, the roster's bigger, more money to go around. It's also a matter of fit of the brand. NWA is a certain kind of identity with this old school studio wrestling. So some guys or girls might not fit that. Same with, Ring of Honor. It's same thing with them. Do you fit with what they're going to do? Is your character, going to be used there? But at the end of the day, Alfred, it's money, right? It's all down to the money.
It definitely is all down to the money. But as you were saying early, I think eventually AEW's cup is going to run over if it hasn't already, in terms of all these former WWE guys that they can take. And I think we're going to start heading into a new era where people from WWE or even AEW start heading to these other companies like an Impact. We're already hearing some rumors about Impact really wanting Braun Strowman. I think Bray Wyatt might end up at Impact. That can still happen. And I do think that some of these other companies are going to benefit as AEW takes on so much talent, where it becomes, okay, we got to have somewhat of a moratorium in terms of getting these new guys in because we have all the talent we need and then some.
Well, and we have to remember too, like, it's not like when you're at AEW you have a contract for infinity. I mean, a lot of the people that have been with AEW from the early stages, from the ground floor, a lot of them we heard 2-3 year contracts. So those 2 or 3 years will be coming up now or in 22. So obviously there's going to be crops of talent. You know, I don't know who or how many, but inevitably there's going to be some that either the company is going to come back to them and say, well, either A, we're not re-signing because we don't feel like we need you, or B, well, maybe we'll resign you, but it's going to be under different terms, and then the talent has to make a decision. So, you know, the roster looks like it's bloating now, but we will start to see this natural. AEW will start to come into the natural cycles here soon. A piece of news kind of happening as we go here. JJ Smith, $2. Wow, Women of Wrestling just announced a 2022 return with AJ Lee and Tessa Blanchard. Yeah, I've been seeing some other stuff of this, I believe, on CBS. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, here? Viacom CBS. They announced a multi-year distribution agreement with Gina Buss and WoW. WoW actually had a media event tonight in LA, and I chose to be here with my guy Justin LaBar. He takes precedent over everybody. But I was tipped off and told, hey, we're gonna have something big. And in my mind, I'd like to apologize for this. I was like, yeah, what could it be? Like, I'm sure it's going to be Tessa, which is big, but, you know, what could it possibly be in terms of bigger than that for WoW? And this is big news in terms of AJ Lee, because, you know, I thought that she was done with wrestling. I believe CM Punk recently probably just doing some business, put it out there that she's not going to be wrestling. And so this caught me by surprise.
Yeah, CBS, that's a big deal. So, I mean, you know, it's a wild time to think of how much mainstream distribution is buying in to distributing pro wrestling. And I say that because it's like, look, while there's a ton of buzz, you know, with AEW and the internet's very powerful in what it deems buzzworthy, when you still look at the actual numbers, fewer people are watching pro wrestling than anywhere in the last 20, 30 years. It just so happens that the people that do watch, they consume it all, and they spend a lot of money, whether it's with WWE and the network and this and that, you know. So it's kind of crazy that the passion that there's fewer people that are watching. It's just that their passion and their pockets are greater than ever.
That's a great point. One of the biggest myths right now in AEW or in pro wrestling in general is that pro wrestling is in something of a boom period, and that AEW is just kind of getting hot in terms of a company that's drawing all these new fans and whatnot. What's happening is more the story, I think, is the decline of WWE in terms of their ticket sales and how a lot of these hardcore fans are now moving to AEW. AEW is doing a good job taking some of these hardcore fans who are already watching wrestling, but they're not creating any new fans. There's not a new contingent of people coming in as it was in the Monday Night Wars era where it exploded. It's not happening at all. What it is just a pivot from people going from one thing to another and choosing to go to another event. And yes, they're doing very well financially and getting big TV deals, but it's on a small scale and drawing from the same pool of people who are already watching wrestling.
Yeah. 5 Canadian from Jody Shauna Jenkins. I don't see talent going the other way, i.e. to WWE, as many believe, or to WWE, as my belief is that WWE is focused in developing their own talent. That's my prediction anyway. Well, they are absolutely they are. They want to develop talent and within their system. It's been a long-standing thing. It does not matter what you accomplished in what other promotion. By and large, it doesn't mean anything. You got to, you know, reestablish. You start 0-0, 0-0, and WWE. You know, and they find talent from all walks. You know, they take the football players, they take the Olympians, they take the gymnasts, whatever. So yeah, I think that's still going to largely be the focus. I don't think that completely. There's always exceptions to the rule. You know, if somebody who is enough of a talent, enough of a character, it becomes available from an AEW. I mean, that's still possible. But yeah, I think by and large, WWE has the Performance Center and NXT there for a reason. So.
Yeah, but don't think that when some of these AEW guys become free agents, WWE is not going to put move heaven and earth to try to get some of them, if nothing else, for the narrative, even if they don't have plans for them, for the sheer narrative that, oh, WWE is starting to get some of these AEW guys. Like, if this is the Vince McMahon that I know, this man probably has a calendar in his office right now. Jade Cargill's contract is up here, MJF's contract's up on this day, Britt Baker's contract's up on this day, and I want you guys on the phone 1 week prior.
Yeah, I completely agree. But to further that, because you're right, there's a narrative to it. To further that, though, if I'm the first big AEW talent to, quote unquote, jump ship over to WWE, you better make sure that price is so sweet, because, yeah, you run a huge risk of getting buried just to make a point of, oh, this person was a big star in AEW. And I know it sounds so ass backwards, and that's the wrestling business. That's the wrestling carny business. We're going to give this person a whole lot of money just so we can humiliate and take away their credibility, to then let it be a reflection on, oh, see how big of a deal they were under that company. And how, I mean, that's a real thing. So I would just say, whoever is the first big name, I would just make sure you are really happy with that price and that the money buys you happiness, because you might have some long days at the office otherwise, having to get used to being told, oh no, you're gonna be chasing a 24/7 title.
That is a great point. The only person I really don't see that happening with would be like a John Moxley if he came back as Dean Ambrose. But even then they might, and I don't think he's ever coming back to WWE, but even then I could see them doing something like that. But that is an excellent point in terms of, it'll be very interesting to see the first person who goes and whether or not they're treated right.
I'm just saying. All right, let's go ahead and jump in to Dynamite, and they kick off. Everybody's in the ring ready to go. We kick it off hot for this eight man tag action here of the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega and Adam Cole up against Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, Bryan Danielson, and Christian. So all kinds of sequences and fun to be had here. A big shift in the match, though, is the Rajgiri driver, as I call it, given by the Young Bucks on Christian Cage on the outside of the ring. So now Christian, they're playing up the neck and the danger. Christian is now basically eliminated from this match, so it's 4-on-3 from this point on. Interesting. One thing of note, again, this match was so hot, but one sequence also to note. At one point, all the heels are trying to do a collective help get Luchasaurus up on Kenny's shoulders to do a power bomb, a sitting power bomb. They couldn't really pull it off. Kenny kind of lost the balance and grip, and then the heels began to embrace the Philly "you effed up" chants, and they just kind of leaned right into it. So I thought that was a kind of a nice, look, the Philly crowd's a Philly crowd, Philly wrestling crowd's a Philly wrestling crowd. So I'm glad they lived up to their credo and didn't cut these internet favorites short a "you effed up" chance when it's deserving. But props to the Bucks, Kenny and Cole for just leaning into it and embracing it. It's the best thing you can do in that situation. Ultimately, though, Jungle Boy, he's going to get the four-way being the elite trigger, BT trigger, and Adam Cole wins them. So a big victory for the super elite. Hot start here, Alfred.
Yeah, it was a very hot start. I thought this was a good opening match. That finisher looked very impressive. It's funny because AEW teased or promoted that the entrances would happen 10 minutes earlier, so you could tune into social media and see the entrances, because this started right away to where they just got right into this match. As soon as the show opened, they did the intros, and then they just got into the wrestling match. So that's very interesting because, they had a lot on the show. And even with that, even cutting the entrances, they still ran up against the clock toward the end of this show. But I thought this was a fun opening match.
It was a very fun opening match. I'm glad you mentioned that about the entrances, because that was a note that I had. When we started the show, when we started talking about Dynamite last Wednesday, I noted how just the first three entrances we saw, the music, Cult of Personality, the Jungle Boys, Tarzan, Adam Cole's.
Yes.
It's so interactive. I said it felt like a rock show. It felt like such interaction. Like the music is a big part of this. And so here, for TV purposes, not getting Adam Cole's entrance on TV, not getting Jungle Boys, not getting Bryan Danielson's, which has been a big hit since he came in. I did think that was a little bit of like, man, it's a little bit of a move to cut out some of your big gems that you have to look forward to on the show, which are these very energetic, high energy, interactive entrances. So I mean, yeah, I guess good on them that they made it available on social, but I missed that. And again, I'm just tuning in right at 8:00, right when the DVR clicks on. So certainly set the tone for, hey, we have a lot we got to fit in here tonight.
Yeah.
Another interactive entrance that we did get, though, is our Cult of Personality CM Punk, complete with a stage dive for the Philly crowd. He gets in. He basically asks him, Alfred, he goes, Philly. He goes, I got a special place in my heart. He talks about living in Philly once upon a time. He says, I can either wrestle or I can buy you some cheesesteaks. Which one do you want? He opts for wrestling, and he puts out an open challenge to Daniel Garcia for Rampage this Friday night, which is, in fact, going to happen. And then as he leaves, he's got these really nice Nike shoes. He gives these shoes to this kid who's doing Orange Cassidy cosplay in the front row. So a whole lot to take away from this one.
Yeah, and on its surface, if you watch this, it was a beautiful gesture for CM Punk to give this child a pair of Air Jordans. But then at the same time, now this child has to walk through the streets of Philadelphia with a pair of Jordans. So that kid's parents have better act like offensive linemen and get those goons in Philadelphia away from him. Because, I'm a grown-ass man. I'm not walking through the streets of Philadelphia wearing a pair of Jordans, let alone holding a brand new pair of Jordans in my hand. So I hope that family's smart enough in terms of how Philly views these Jordans. Because, man, if I saw that kid and I went to that show, Tony, if you see that kid and you get those Jordans from me, I'll pay you double, buddy. No, don't do anything to that kid. I'm just kidding.
Remember, this is the city that boots Santa Claus. This is the first city to have a magistrate presiding in the basement of a football game with a jail cell. That's the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, city of brotherly love, man. And I watched CM Punk give that kid Jordans, and I was like, man, that's a cool gesture, but that's a gift and a curse right there. So, and I really do like seeing that Orange Cassidy costume is starting to become kind of like an iconic thing, kind of like their version of the Macho Man costumes that you'll see all over WWE events. So it's really cool. It's a very easy costume to do. I might do like a Orange Cassidy costume for Halloween this year in October. It'd be Rotten Orange Cassidy, which would be a lot of fun for me. But I like CM Punk's promo. Here's what I don't like about what CM Punk has been doing in his promos. And I don't know if he's building to something long-term, but he keeps saying, like, are you guys sick of me yet? And they're clearly not sick of him. And it seems very self-conscious. I do think it's come from a real place of self-doubt, of him thinking, oh, any minute now they're going to turn on me. And it kind of comes off as a little awkward when he just continues to ask them, like, so you guys aren't sick of me, right? And I wish you would stop with that unless it's going somewhere. But, I thought this was a fine promo. And it'll be interesting to see CM Punk and what he does for that Rampage number. Because for 6 weeks in a row now, Rampage has drawn its lowest number ever. And CM Punk, that first hour of the 2-hour Rampage did really well. And it 727,000 average. And for his match, it peaked at 806,000. So we'll see what it means to the Rampage rating if they can finally turn it around, if CM Punk advertised on Rampage.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting strategy they're taking of Rampage slowly becoming like the CM Punk show where you can see him wrestle. He promos on Wednesday, he tries to get you to turn in on Friday to watch him wrestle. Of course, when they tape Rampage, as they're doing tonight, that basically just leads into Punk being the in-house main event for the live crowd. So there's a lot of things that I guess I agree with it, but the numbers, we got to see the numbers reflected. At some point, you have to go, okay, we're paying Punk, obviously, I'm sure, significantly 7 figures. We need to get him wrestling on the show that has more monetary at stake, which is Dynamite. So I'll be curious to see how long this trend continues of him. And I also think too, good on him wanting to give a rub to these the younger guys, the Darbys, the Hobbs, the Daniel Garcias. But let's also keep in mind, let's still make sure we're giving people, some of the marquees they really want to see. I'm not saying we got to jump right into it all, right away, but just all things I'm just thinking, I'm watching to see. Sure. How do they pace this? I gotta give a shout out to my buddy Mike Nolan, because Philadelphia memory. Because he loves to tell the story. But my buddy Nolan and I, this is years ago. WWE did Money in the Bank in Philly. I don't remember if Cody Rhodes won it that night even actually, but it was Money in the Bank in Philly years ago. And Mike and I go out there, and I did like a little meet and greet and everything beforehand. And we're walking to the meet and greet. I'm just walking down Philly, and some car they drive right by me, and this guy's sticking their head out of the car. All they go is "F you, LaBar," and just speed off. And Nolan always looks at me and goes, "Philly."
Yeah, everybody's a heel in Philly. At some point, Philly will turn on you.
So CM Punk is handing out shoes to kids in the front row. Arn Anderson's burning Armani suits. So this is the range of our of our philanthropy here.
Yeah, we're just burning money tonight.
We're just burning money. We see a tape promo of Arn Anderson with a burn barrel in the backyard, and he's burning Cody's vest. Then Cody comes out like, Arn, what are you doing? You're being crazy. Go to bed. And then he has Cody burn his tie. He's slapping Cody. I missed half the dialogue. I don't even remember all the dialogue because I was kind of laughing, trying to write and keep up with this. This is just funny. I don't know.
I thought it was hilarious. I mean, I'm really enjoying this Arn Anderson turn in his character, and that he's kind of like taking on this Mr. Miyagi role. He was always kind of like an ancillary character to Cody Rhodes, where he's a coach, he's got his clipboard, and he's not doing too much. He's just kind of calling the plays, quote unquote, but not really talking or doing much. But now he seems very invested in trying to motivate Cody. And what this does is it makes Malachi Black come off as a bigger star, because we hadn't even seen Malachi Black to this point. And you see how kind of the sense of urgency and how Arn Anderson really needs to get Cody focused for this dangerous killer in Malachi Black. But I just love that Arn is starting to take kind of a senile turn. And as long as it doesn't become too much of a cartoon, I find it very entertaining. I love that he's outside of Cody's apartment, like stalking the guy after talking about his Glock. So I'm just, every week I'm going to be very invested in what they've got for Arn.
Yeah, we got Goldberg on Monday repeatedly making murder threats. Arn's packing heat for potential carjackings.
What is going on in this?
It's a wild west. It's not a super chat, but this pops me too much not to. Gary says Philly stopped stealing sneakers of people years ago, unless it restarted.
Well,
yeah,
maybe they've gentrified.
They've evolved.
Philly.
They've evolved.
Yeah. Now they steal tennis shoes. You know, they don't steal sneakers anymore.
Oh boy, they cleaned up that part of town.
Yeah, and they were at Temple University, so it was a nicer part of Philly, I guess. But like, okay, play with Philly if you want to.
All right, up next we get Bobby Fish making his AEW debut up against the new TNT champion Sammy Guevara. Shout out to Bobby Fish. People might forget or don't realize the guy's in his 40s, but he's in really good shape. He's a guy who, obviously, the pinnacle, no pun intended, of his career. It was his time in NXT that he got. So it's cool to see him. Whether this is a one-off, whether he's going to have some kind of regularity with AEW, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But cool to see him in the ring. This was a good match for what it was. But I'm just going to be honest here. The real story is what happens after this match. So Sammy Guevara is going to get the win. Hits the GTH. He's immediately attacked by Dan Lambert and his posse. They're beat down, and then all of a sudden Jericho's music hits. Jericho and Hager, they come out to make the save, and then Dan Lambert proceeds to cut a promo, trying to make the point of, forget this, shit-stained city of Philly and what have you. We're going to be in my backyard in Miami soon, and he's trying to lay down a challenge of a match. He's trying, because as he's speaking, the crowd there is so much heat. I think they're chanting "Shut the F up" at him.
They definitely are.
There is such heat, and to the point of Jericho has to pull the old Steve Austin, Vince McMahon, saying, "I can't hear you because you got 20,000 people screaming at you." Alfred. I can't remember. This guy's automatic money right now. And I'm talking about Dan Lambert.
I was literally trying to remember myself, and the only thing I could really compare this to is JBL at One Night Stand in Philadelphia. I believe it was in Philadelphia, it was at Hammerstein Ballroom, and those people were going crazy, chanting over him and saying "Shut the F up," just like this. This is what that was reminiscent of, except I think this is louder, and I think this is way more heat in terms of a bigger building of engaged Philadelphia fans just going crazy when Dan Lambert is talking, and this is the most heat I think I've ever seen anybody have in AEW.
Yeah, so they're going to be in Miami. Now, this is going to be, if I have this right, there's no Dynamite next Wednesday. Next week's Dynamite is going to actually be on Saturday.
I believe it is preempted.
On Saturday the 16th. Yeah, so this is going to be one of the things they're going to build towards. Again, Dan Lambert and being from America Top Team being based in Miami. So, but I don't think there'll be any problem getting heat in his quote unquote hometown. Right. This guy's got it.
Yeah, this is good. And Jericho, I thought Dan Lambert was even great, where there was a mishap with the microphone that Jericho thought it cut off, and he threw it aside and tried to go for new. And Dan Lambert picked it right up, didn't miss a step, and he was just like, "Oh, what's the matter? You can't talk. You want me to say it for you?" So this guy is just a superstar.
Yeah, he is. He's I don't know what the plan is. I hope he sticks around. I think this guy's.
Me too. I hope him and America's Top Team, because they add something to this show where when they walked out, there was a visceral reaction. I think Jorge Masvidal, I don't know how much he's going to be wrestling, but that would be a nice transition for him, because I think he'd be a good fit. He's a big star, a proven name who's drawn money on pay-per-view with literally, and I'm not talking about wrestling. In UFC, they had a fake belt that they made up, the BMF belt. It did one of their best buy rates ever, and it was because of Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. And this guy is a certifiable money-drawing star, and I really hope that he's able to do more with pro wrestling.
Is Dan Lambert the same one? I can't remember if you and I talked about this, Alfred. Is Dan Lambert the same guy that I'm thinking of, that as soon as the name and image likeness passed, that he's like a big Miami Hurricane booster, and he was like prepared to like give everybody on the Hurricanes football team like some like 50,000, like some amount of money or something to come like work out and train at his gym? Like I think it was him. I think
that was him. Yeah, and I think we did talk about that. And I think that was after the NCAA, announced that they were going to be paying student athletes. But I believe that was him.
This guy's great. I'm becoming a Dan Lambert fan. All right, Dean Regan TV 179 and the euros. He says Fish left NXT to avoid Tony D'Angelo. True story.
Yeah, he did. Damn right, he did. I think anybody who left NXT, I think Adam Cole left NXT because he knew Tony D'Angelo was coming. Greatest of all time.
All right, keeping it going. We get the reveal. Ref Aubrey Edwards, easy for me to say, in the ring with Tony Schiavone, and they reveal the new TBS title that's going to be in the women's division. So much like the TNT title, I know Tony Khan doesn't like to say that it's mid-card or it's of equal status, but there's now a second title in the women's division. The TBS title, of course, is coinciding with Dynamite moving to TBS on January 5th. So there's going to be a tournament, and they do a little video package too, catching up with a lot of the females in the backstage of who could potentially be in this tournament. There's going to be a tournament that's going to lead in crowning the first TBS title. Alfred, do you like them adding a second women's singles title at this point?
I do. I really do like it. It's good that they created a title for Jade Cargill, because that's the only option I think it is. So it's good to see that Jade Cargill is going to be getting her title in January. She's going to be in that tournament, and I think it's a nice looking title. I like the idea of women having more than one title because otherwise it seems like they're kind of a gimmick. And this is something I just talked to Court Bauer of MLW. I got a piece coming out for Forbes tomorrow. They're doing Fightland, and he made some great points in terms of how he's going to be booking the women in MLW. That they're going to have their own weight classes. He's going to have weight classes, several different weight classes for women, because he does not view women as just kind of an ancillary part of the show to where they're going to have their one title and then the men are going to have all these titles. And I do like the idea of booking women on the level of they're going to have multiple championships, because you've seen how big of a star Britt Baker is, pound for pound, probably the biggest star in AEW. So to give other women that opportunity and kind of treat them on the same levels of men as they have been doing with Britt Baker is only going to help with the amount of different stars that they can create. So I like the idea of having multiple women's championships.
That's interesting with the weight class thing, because normally in pro wrestling, like in courtesy of life, women's weight is taboo. You don't talk about a woman's weight,
right?
And so when they introduce women, it's never coming to the aisle from Pittsburgh, PA, weighing 100, and you just don't do weight. So that's a bold move to do a weight division.
It is, but it'll fit in MLW, because I really do like how MLW approaches it like it's an actual sport. So they're like competitors or combatants or fighters, to where they're treating it like, even though it's a wrestling show, what differentiates them is they're doing it as if they were actually doing a shoot.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll give it a chance for MLW because they have a cool presentation, but I'm never big with just weights classes in pro wrestling. Like, I mean, when they rolled out 205 Live years ago, I was like, this is a huge mistake. Because you are now just, it was one thing when the cruiserweight title or a lightweight title, WWE used to have the light heavyweight title. It was one thing there where there was no actual defined weight. It just was kind of all by appearance. This person looks or works a style that, okay, we can classify them as a cruiserweight or a light heavyweight. But once you actually then put a number to it, then it's like, okay, well, I'm watching Finn Balor win the Universal title, the inaugural Universal title. And Finn Balor ain't over 205. Right. It's I don't know. I think weight classes just pigeonhole you creatively. I'm not a fan of weight classes in pro wrestling.
I do agree with that in the history of pro wrestling. The one thing I'll say just to push back is one of the things people like to say is that, oh, when a smaller guy, look at all the smaller guys who get over in MMA and boxing and whatnot, and how come WWE doesn't push smaller guys? And it's because of how they've kind of pigeonholed people like that. I think the reason a lot of these Conor McGregors and Floyd Mayweathers are able to get over is because they're in their own weight class and able to be world champions, pound for pound type talent, instead of them, we're not going to see Floyd Mayweather fight Evander Holyfield, so he gets a chance to carve out his own niche there. So maybe they'll be able to create, undersized stars or superstars. I mean, MLW, obviously, that's a big ask in terms of the platform that they currently have. But I think that hopefully they'll be able to create stars within smaller weight divisions.
All right, we'll see. All right, Darby Allen, he's going to be heavy in the second hour here with us. We got a Darby sit down with Jim Ross real quick. JR references, the comments made last week about MJF and why Darby paints his face, the half that he does. And so, Darby again kind of talks about, my uncle did die in a drunk driving situation. I was in the car. I paint my face this half this way because I'm half dead. I don't feel things. I don't feel emotions. I faced death that day. And he notes how MJF tried to get really personal, and he's like, and I'm not gonna go there. He's not gonna, I didn't punch him last week because he's not gonna beat me. He's not gonna break me. I'm stronger than he is. Emotionally, I'm not gonna give in. So that then segues right into Darby having a match against Nick Comoroto. Again, pretty, Comoroto didn't even get an entrance on TV. Darby gets to the ring, gets on the turnbuckle, immediately dives off the turnbuckle. We're off and running, but Darby ends up winning with the coffin drop. And a little fun after the fact, QT Marshall hits a diamond cutter, which Sting no sells, and then Sting hits the Scorpion Death Drop on him. So we'll get to more Darby here in a second, but first just this promo and then this match. Darby Allen, you like how he's looking?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting a little dark with Darby Allen with this storyline about his, we're hearing week after week about his uncle drunk driving and the death and stuff like that. But it is a pretty dark character, so we'll see where it goes. I don't think Darby's done a good job connecting the dots in terms of like, why do you have trust issues? Actually, Issa brought this up to my attention in that, like, they're not doing a good job connecting the dots in terms of why he has trust issues or why. I get the half dead thing, but he seems to be speaking to the fact that he doesn't trust anybody because of what happened, what happened was, his uncle, unfortunately, it was a drunk driving incident. And I wish that he would shed more light on how that affected his trust issues, because I think that is an interesting story to be told.
I agree. And also, like, I feel like there's either an obvious miss in the story where it's like a head scratcher, or there's an obvious layup to tie some loose ends together of like, okay, you lost an uncle, so not a dad, but like an uncle. So it's kind of like, uncle was always in our culture is always kind of like framed as fatherly advice, but with not the parental pressures. Kind of like somebody you can talk to a little bit easier, the fun uncle, the cool uncle, the goofy uncle. So you lost an uncle. You have trust issues, but then you have a guy who's 35 years older than you, who's a legend in the business, constantly flanking you and Sting.
Exactly.
So there should be a natural, like, is Sting filling the void that you've had your whole, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where this goes. We'll see. Yeah. I will jump ahead in the show right now just to kind of tie all the Darby stuff together. So later we do see Darby walking through in the parking garage. And Alex Marvez catches up with him and says, MJF's is here to challenge, and do you accept it? And so Darby's like, yeah, MJF, absolutely. So we're going to have our MJF versus Darby. Just as quick as he accepts that, a limo pulls up. Some masked men get out and start beating the hell out of Darby. Masked man even takes over the camera. That's a nice little touch to film all this. It's made obvious that this is the pinnacle. This is, Dax. This is FTR and Sean Spears and Wardlow in mass. Wardlow does his F10 on to guardrails and stop signs. Looks, so it's Darby's weekly brutal looking bump that he takes, and then MJF gets out again under a mask to do the final beat up. So a nice touch here. The opposing heels attacking, but of course just putting themselves under mask so as commentary noted, so they can just plain out deny they had nothing to do with handicapping Darby. And they would actually go on to say later in the show that Darby's not cleared. So this MJF versus Darby match, Alfred, it's not going to happen next week. They are stringing us along, as they should, for this big payoff.
I love that. No, I really do like that because I do feel like they gave away the Adam Cole Jungle Boy match too soon. So when it was MJF and Darby, I just felt this was more in the same. But I do like that they're taking their time with this. I like the beatdown. I like the presentation of this and them cackling like hyenas, like JR brought up.
Yeah.
I love that they all had masks on, but they just wore their normal clothes so that they pretty much telegraphed to you who they were, which is such a heel thing to do because when they deny it, it's going to just be such a clear lie. So MJF in his nice suit, Wardlow delivering the F10 in a mask, and it's like, who else could it be? But them in masks, and the cameraman, like you mentioned with the mask, was a nice touch. So, this is a very brutal looking beatdown, and that guardrail did not look like a lot of fun to take an F10 on with the cement right there. But Darby takes some crazy bumps, and this is more of that.
Yeah, it wasn't a gimmicked guardrail, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Mr. 412. $5 tomorrow is my birthday. Well, happy birthday, Mr. 412.
Happy birthday. Same birthday as Simon Cowell and Vladimir Putin. So happy birthday, my guy.
Oh, look at you, the birthday fun facts. Wait. Why the frig do you know that it's Vladimir Putin's birthday tomorrow?
I saw this in the super chat, so I just pulled up a website and said October 7th birthday to see who else had the birthday. Wouldn't that be funny if I just knew off the top of my mind who the October 7th birthdays were?
I don't know if it'd be funny, but it would certainly, again, be a question that I'd want the real answer to as to why does a Forbes writer so quickly know that Vladimir, are we investigating Vladimir Putin's? Yeah. He doesn't pay taxes. The Kremlin doesn't pay taxes. Mr. 4. See, I don't know if Mr. 412. I don't know if this is. I associate. Here in Pittsburgh, 412 is the area code, so I associate that as like a Pittsburgh thing. Maybe his birthday is April 12th. I don't know. But no matter what, happy birthday tomorrow, Vladimir Putin. The company you're in. Who's the other one? Putin and who else?
Simon Cowell.
Oh God. Good Lord.
Those are the two biggest stars.
I don't know which ones ruin the world more. All right. Dean Regan TV. I'm gonna have Russia's gonna attack into my. I'm gonna be hacked by the next podcast. My wife texted me earlier too, and she goes, "By the way, the Netflix password had to change. Somebody from Mexico was using our Netflix account. Now I'm gonna have like Russia hacking into our stuff.
Now your algorithms on that stuff is gonna be all this stuff that they like."
Totally. Dean Regan TV. Is Moxley in a worse place than he was in WWE? Ooh.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think a worse place. I mean. If you mean like, he's not in the. Well, first off, he was champion in the world title picture for a very long time. So that just as Jericho, that runs its course. You got to come back down and find some contributions elsewhere in the card. No, I don't think he's in a worse place. I mean, he's definitely getting to do his thing. I mean, I think Jon Moxley as the individual single star that he is right now in AEW is certainly better than pretty much any of the singles Dean Ambrose. Unfortunately, Dean Ambrose was such a success in the unit of the Shield, especially early on. But then I think about, and mind you, this is a guy who in 2011, 2012, I was like, when I saw Dean Ambrose in FCW, I was screaming to get this guy up to the main roster, and I was so mad that it couldn't come to fruition with that stuff with he and McFoley at the hotel. So mind you, I'm a big Jon Moxley transformed into this Dean Ambrose, fan. But unfortunately now, when I think back to WWE Dean Ambrose as a single star, I think about the highest stage, which was a big flop for one reason or another. I'm sure there's a story to it, which is WrestleMania match of Brock Lesnar, and it was just a very blah street fight. And it's been hinted at even too. I think even Stone Cold even on his podcast kind of called out Ambrose. So I don't know. Bottom line, Dean, I think Moxley's in a much better place. He's independent. He's creatively in a great place and in control. Fans are into him. He's got a very unique entrance. He's got credibility. So I don't think.
And I do think a heel turn is coming any day now. I think he cut a promo. I believe it was like a month or two ago, kind of running down a lot of the baby faces. And then tonight, if you saw his interactions with Hangman Adam Page, he got booed. And I do think that he's just, once he turns heel, I think we're going to get this kind of next iteration of Jon Moxley. But he's in a holding pattern right now because AEW can only push so many people at once, and he got a major push when he was world champion.
And let's not forget too the personal element. I mean, and he even like made a mention of it on this promo tonight. He's got a 3-month-old at home, so he might be happy with not he's not in a spot where he's got to work the main event of every show, or he's got to do every PR appearance for AEW, as he said. Now that they're back on the road, he might like the fact that he's can take a middle of the card position at the moment. And get back home and be dad and husband, and again, he carried a lot of the company for a year. So I think we forget too. It's not our business, but since he put it out there, we forget there's a personal side to, hey, I need some time off right now, or hey, can we cool things down a little bit, so I don't have to do as much of the stuff, outside the TV. I think are all things that are relative this day and age. All right, back to the show here. So we get Dark Order and a promo backstage, and they've agreed, Alfred, that they are going to do more voting and just their general decision making. So I guess they still eventually have to get a new leader, right?
Maybe, but I mean, this is the perfect time for Hangman Adam Page to come back, because really just last week they all got back together, and here comes Hangman Adam Page. So maybe they'll pick up where they left off, because the story that they are telling long term for Hangman Adam Page is he does not have the confidence that he needs to beat Kenny Omega, and he lost the last time he went for it in that group match. And so this would be a perfect place to pick back up if they're going to tell that story, which I do think is a great long-term story that if and when he does become world champion will be a very special moment.
We got Dante Martin in the ring. He says he'll fight anyone. Lights out, lights back on. Malachi Black's in the ring, spits the miss, hits the midnight kick. Down goes Martin. Lights off, lights back on. Martin's on the outside on the floor. Black's in the ring. Black grabs the mic, says the House of Black accepts. So this appears to be Malachi Black's, again, his next. I don't know if he's still feuding with Cody in the grand scheme, but this is at least the next opponent for Malachi Black. And again, I'll jump ahead here to tie some things together. Later on in the show, we'll get a Leo Rush promo. This is a second week in a row. Of course, we got Rush last week. And this week, the focus of Leo Rush's promo, Alfred, is Leo is basically cutting a promo for an audience of one, and that's Dante Martin saying, basically, Dante, I'm a businessman, have your people call my people, and basically kind of offering his potential services to guide him to the promised land of success. So this sounds like, at least right now off the bat, Leo Rush might not be putting on the boots and the tights to get in there and do what Leo Rush can do, which is some amazing things in the ring. This might be Leo Rush kind of taking the role that he had with Bobby Lashley on Raw some years ago, where he's kind of that very obnoxious but entertaining talking mouthpiece with him.
I love it. This is exactly what Dante Martin would theoretically need. I mean, he's cutting a promo, and it's not every day you see a brother cutting a promo in the ring for AEW. So I had to double check, but then they pulled the rug, turned the lights off, kicked him in the head, and murdered him. So I was like, okay, this is the AEW that I know. But then the Leo Rush thing was very interesting, because I like the fact that they're actually going to invest and build in terms of this character and have somebody talk for him, because a lot of the consternation in terms of I've been very outspoken and seeing, I want to see more guys like Dante Martin get their shot in terms of becoming fully fleshed out characters. And it's like, oh, well, he can't cut a promo. A, I thought he cut a pretty good promo for the little I saw him talk. And B, just like when they had put a Jungle Boy with a Christian and hid his weaknesses, putting a Leo Rush with a Dante Martin can hide the flaw in his game currently, while Dante Martin gets to shine in the ring, which he's incredible at. So yes, I would love to see a pairing between Leo Rush and Dante Martin. I don't think it's going to go too well for him against Malachi Black, but as long as they follow up and they have stories for these two to develop Dante Martin's character and Leo Rush, I think this could be pretty promising for Dante.
I would agree. Many in the chat saying that Bobby Fish is all elite, that AEW has confirmed that. So yes. Congrats to Bobby Fish.
Expecting that. Congrats.
All right, we get another in-ring promo. So a lot of in-ring promos here wrapped together. Ricky Stark's in the ring. He's talking trash on Brian Cage. Cage comes running out. A very, very, very quick brawl of Cage beating up on Ricky Starks before Team Taz pulls him out. Look, we're in Philly. FTW title's got a lot of history here. Taz obviously has a lot of history here. Again, I don't. It's like it's like Mom always said, if you don't have anything positive to say, don't say anything at all. But I'm supposed to say something about everything that we talk about on the show. I just think this Team Taz thing needs to stop. It's just not doing anything for anybody. Ricky Starks looks like a stud.
Sure,
he looks like a stud, but I don't know. And Hobbs on his own, like, but under this Team Taz is they haven't won since the third grade picnic. It just feels like
it's like a bunch of ingredients with like all the ingredients sound good, but when you put them together, somehow it doesn't make a good stew or whatnot. It's like, because I'm not a big fan of like beef stew, but I do like beef. I do like carrots. I do like all the things that are in there, but together,
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like all those things. I'm not a big beef stew guy, and I like soup. I like chili. Yeah. I like cheesy potato soup. I like cream of crab soup. Beef stew. I'm with you, but I like.
You would think it would be delicious, but somehow all these just don't work together. And I feel the same way about Team Taz. Was Taz even on the show? I don't even think Taz made an appearance on the show with this segment.
I don't think so, which is very, again, interesting that they're in Philly, that he doesn't make. Exactly. Unless I know a lot of people have been trying to drop reports that there's been a lot more Blue Meanie. There's been a lot of other people that made appearances tonight. So unless they're saving them for something else, but.
Here's a quick fun fact about this segment. So Brian Cage did this segment, and Brian Cage on TV. So one of my the guy Alex on Twitter reaches out, shouting out Chico, California, my hometown, Brian Cage's hometown, Aaron Rodgers. We've talked about this before. So we're just shouting out Chico, California. Brian Cage, like literally as the segment is coming to an end, maybe like right after it ends, he jumps into the conversation and goes, "Oh yeah, don't forget about Nobby's in Chico, California." It's like, you were just on TV. How did you get here so fast? Because this is a live show. So he must have gone straight to the back, checked his phone, and be like, "Oh, they're talking about Chico. Let me get in on this." Shout out to Brian Cage in Chico, California.
Alfred Konuwa, Brian Cage, and Aaron Rodgers walk into a bar. I'll let you guys finish it from there.
That's what should happen. Instead of Team Taz, let's get Brian Cage, myself, and Aaron Rodgers in a stable. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be playing football probably next year, so we all get together after Aaron Rodgers wins the Super Bowl and retires, and we all make a stable. We'll get Brian Cage over, Tony Khan. I'm sure he'd love to have me in AEW.
Like how you snuck that in there. There's a lot of chatter on here in Pittsburgh about Aaron Rodgers coming to Pittsburgh next year because leading up to that Pittsburgh game last week, he like shouted out how much there's a guy here that does a gimmick called Pittsburgh Dad, a very popular series, and Mike McCarthy is from this area, so Rodgers talking about all the time, so you had to listen to McCarthy in his headset speaking Pittsburghese and the Pittsburghese accent, and Mike Tomlin apparently loves Aaron Rodgers. Like all this talk of like, Ben's going to be dead by next year, and Aaron Rodgers is coming to Pittsburgh
by week 11, based on how Ben looks.
That's being.
And I did see, that is worrisome because I did see Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin were playing a little too nice. Even during the game, they were exchanging these loving looks where Aaron Rodgers was trying to catch him offside, and Mike Tomlin's giving him this look like, "I got you." So they're a little bit too chummy. So I could see something like that happening.
Let's waste all your cat money, Pittsburgh, on bringing Aaron Rodgers. Anyways, looking to see here. It was super chat. Dean back at it again. Cage feels made for WWE. They haven't used him well. Has he ever had a run at WWE? I know a lot. Most of the Luchasaurus. Okay, Luchasaurus was in NXT.
Yeah.
Wardlow, I know, was at some PC. He did some PC tryouts. Obviously, never got signed. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Like some of the big men that AEW have all had like Nick Camarado was in NXT. Mm-hmm. So it's not like these are, guys that WWE hadn't already seen for what or Lance Archer was in WWE or FCW.
I don't agree that Cage would be a good fit. I think a lot of people say that because he's got the look. I think what would happen with Brian Cage, he's going to be very careful because I think Vince would see his body and stuff like that. But then he would see how Brian Cage works, which I think Brian Cage is a phenomenal worker. He's obviously influenced by Canyon, if you saw that Dark Side of the Ring, because he's got all this innovative offense. And if Vince saw a big guy working like that, Vince would be like, "What the hell is he doing? Why is he jumping around? Why is he doing these suplexes and moves? He needs to be doing this." And then he would learn how to work like they did with Keith Lee and teach him how to work like a giant. And plus, Brian's up there in his 30s, and I don't think WWE is looking for people in that age range. And I don't think that Brian Cage, if he went to WWE, would be a good fit based on how Vince McMahon wants to book guys who look like him and based on what WWE is looking for right now.
Yeah, and Brian Cage also, obviously Brian's jacked to all hell, but he's not, and this is relative. I'm not talking about the man on the street. Brian's not that tall.
Yeah.
He's wide and very built, but you put him next to, you put Brian Cage. I'm trying to think of like some of the big men that WWE have, like Omos, even gender. Like you stand Jinder Mahal next to Brian Cage. Brian Cage again has a physique, but he doesn't look like a big man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that makes sense. You know,
it definitely does. I call it the Randy Orton because I think Randy Orton is, to me, the staple of that. If this is like when I saw Matt Riddle standing in the ring with Randy Orton, I was never sure how tall or big Matt Riddle is, but Riddle looks fine next to Orton. I think that's one of the reasons that he is kind of thriving on the main roster right now. But sometimes there have been people who, when he stands next to Randy Orton, who's very tall, much taller than he kind of looks on TV. Sometimes when Randy Orton towers over somebody, it kind of is almost the signal of death. Like, like this, they're going to think that they're too short.
It's the same thing with Dustin Rhodes or Goldust.
Yeah.
He's a legit 6'6". He's a tall dude. And so, like, I always thought that if you look back to, like, this is really dating back in the mid 90s, but when Goldust would have like little spats with the Undertaker, and like the Undertaker's built at 6'10", but Mark Calloway's like generously 6'8", at best. So Goldust ain't much, I always like, that kind of kills the Undertaker size vibe early in the Undertaker's career. That Goldust is, in this gold bodysuit, which made him look even taller because it's all one color. But yeah, anyways, but Brian Cage, I mean, but you're totally right, Alfred. He does not work like what Vince would be pulling him aside quickly. So this is an interesting one here. We get a women's match. We get Hikaru Shida up against Serena Deeb. Now, the gimmick going into this is that they have a trophy and everything already there with her name on it, that if she wins, she's the first female in AEW to hit 50 wins. So she has this very competitive 2-segment match with Deeb, and I got to give credit when she does the first one out the tunnel. Crowd's not making a lot of noise. What you do see the crowd, there's not many people on their feet. It's kind of a pretty low crowd for what is positioned in the show as it's the last match before the main event in terms of matches. So it's the kind of the throwaway cool down before get you back up. But credit to these ladies, they got the crowd into this pretty effectively. There's also a really cool spot I want to point out. Shida gets like this front face lock. It looks like she's going to basically DDT D, but rather than doing a DDT, she gets D off the ground and does like an airplane spin. So that was pretty cool. Got a pretty good reaction. But the shock here, Alfred, is the finish. The trophy's out there and everything's ready to go. D, raking the eyes, getting pretty dastardly, ends up winning the match, getting Shida in this knee wrench submission. And then after the match, grabs the glass trophy or whatever it's made of. It starts beating Shida with this trophy. So this turned in what I thought was just going to be a ceremonial let's go yay for Shida, who was kind of, our first lady we wanted to strap, booking push to. And no, this is something else spawned out of this.
I love this, and really it wasn't too much of a shock to me because this is kind of what I expected. And even the first time around when they did this with Jungle Boy, that's what I thought that they were going to do. I thought this is a great way to get heat in terms of we're going to build up this 50 thing. We're going to make people think they're going to win by having this trophy out there. And then the dastardly heel is going to beat them, and it's going to cause the fans to boo them really vociferously because they want to see that 50. And when they didn't do it with Jungle Boy, I thought to myself, okay, that's good. That's pretty cool that they're really celebrating the 50 wins. But eventually, when the next time they have an opportunity like this, I think they should pull the trigger on like having the heel win. And I'm glad they did this because now it's almost like she's chasing a championship, where that 50 wins now means even more. I think this crowd was very furious with Serena Deeb that not only did she win and deprive her of that moment, but also, like you said, beat her up with that trophy. And I thought this was a classic heel moment, which I just don't think AEW has enough of these moments to really create legitimate heat for somebody as a heel. And I thought this was really good. I thought Serena Deeb was great, both in the ring and as a heel, as a character. And I want to see where this goes and how long they stretch this out to give Hikaru Shida that 50 wins.
Yeah, it went from, like I said, kind of, in the entrances to, like you said, heat at the end here. I get critical of AEW sometimes about, again, it being them pandering. Tony Khan, right now it's like Tony Khan's like the biggest babyface in wrestling to a population, and AEW can do no wrong. There is that narrative. There is those section of fans, and I do get on sometimes of like, I think Aubrey's really good, but I think a lot of the referees are, or at least by the direction. They don't enforce rules or whatever. But I will say, I got to give credit to the crowds at AEW that they play along. They don't hijack the shows, as we had seen in past years in like WWE shows where, like, beach balls or whatever, like, they hijack the shows in some regard. AEW fans play along. They were not going to let the Bucks and Kenny and them slide, and they gave them a "you effed up" chance, and those guys, and they boo them because they know that they're supposed to boo them because they're the heels, or like. This could have easily fallen flat. The fact that Serena Deeb got the heat she got out of, I'm proud of the fans getting into that. Dan Lambert. I don't know. What I'm saying is, it is nice to see moments of like actual, real, palpable heat. And even MJF, every AEW fan, if you pull them aside as they're leaving an arena, they'll talk glowingly about how good of a heel MJF is, and he really knows how to get heat, and he really knows how to also work. They'll give all the praise, but they still know to play along, and they still also get sucked in. And so I got to say that's something that's kind of pretty in 2021. It's pretty refreshing that can have happened. And that Serena Deeb, who, again, coming in with very little background in AEW, and the fact that she was able to turn this segment into what she was, and then she did for that fact. So this might have been my surprise of the night. I had no real. I think, this is gonna be a simple sheet of squash, whatever. Give her the trophy. Whatever, but this turned into something far more, so I'm in for it.
That's what I liked about it. They really set this up like this was going to be Sheeta's moment, and they've already set the precedent with the Jungle Boy moment where they had the trophy built. And so you think to yourself, okay, they've got the trophy out there. They're not going to just make this trophy for her not to win it, and then she didn't win it. So this is very, very well done.
Yeah, Serena Deeb, the woman of 1,000 holds, and they confirmed it on the commentary. I don't know if I knew this or not, but the fact that the man of 1,000 holds, Dean Malenko, in fact, gave her the okay to use that. Pretty cool. All right, main event time. Casino ladder match here again. First two competitors start. Every 2 minutes after that, a new one comes out. Got to grab the chip. The chip at the top will give you an automatic title match against Kenny Omega. We start with Orange Cassidy versus Pac. We then next get Andrade El Idolo. He has a crazy spot. He sunset flips back off the ladder. Looked pretty brutal. Out comes Matt Hardy. Of course, he's no stranger to ladder matches. Go to commercial. During the commercial, out comes Lance Archer. He's doing some dominant stuff. Then here comes Jon Moxley out of the crowd. Moxley gets met in the crowd by Lance Archer, as we've been talking and teasing all the entire show. If you go back and watch it, one kid take, granted, and the fans are kind of in the mixer. You get what you put yourself there for. If you're going to lean in, it's going to happen. We got fans getting hit and shoved. Then they get inside the ringside area again, and they shoved one of the other ones against a barricade. Some dad's got a kid in his arms. He has to jolt back. Pretty crazy. Just all wild. Then now it's time for the Joker. Who's the Joker? Who's that last spot? And Hangman Page's music hits. First time we've seen him in over a month. Crowd goes monster banana. Crowd goes banana for Hangman Page. We get a few big spots. Page, huge slam on Pac from the top of the ladder through a table. Looked brutal.
I never want to see that again. It looked, I don't know about you, but it seemed like he was in the air forever, and Pac was like going head first down to that table, and he eventually overcorrected. He's a phenomenal athlete, but I mean, there is a universe where that goes wrong, and the more they tempt fate with a spot like that, my goodness, that was scary.
No, I agree. We also got Matt Hardy. He does his traditional Hardy leg drop from the top of the ladder onto Orange Cassidy through a table. I've ridden in a car with Matt. I've seen how Matt gets into a car. Matt can't. Most of us open a passenger door and we step our left. If you're getting in the passenger, you step your left leg in and then you kind of slide your body in, whatever. Matt can't do that. Matt has to open the door. Matt turns this way to face outward and has to kind of like seat himself and then swing. Like those hips and that ass tailbone is going through a lot of pain. And he just added a few more years to that spot, and he was selling it like crazy too, because he went through. You could tell that did some damage to him. Big old finish. We finish up with Hangman Page, and I was joking with Alfred just before we started recording. The finishes, we have Page and Moxley, which makes sense, mind you, because the champion is what you're going for. You get a title champion. Champion's a heel, so it totally makes sense to have two baby faces up there, right? Fine. make it a little unpredictable. Which one's going to get it? Paige and Moxley are up there, and they're punching furiously at each other. And then, like, they just kind of stop. Moxley kind of mouths something, and then he just kind of half-heartedly falls off the ladder. Yeah. I don't know if the idea was supposed to be fist of fury, oh, I'm dazed and I fall off, but it kind of looked like punch. It looked like that Rock'em Sock'em Robots game.
That's what it looked like.
It was punch, and then Moxley went, I'm out. And then he just kind of, like, I don't know if there was a time constraint or what happened. Yeah. Anyways, Page climbs up. He grabs the chip. Hangman Adam Page is now in line for a long-awaited title match against his former best friend, Kenny Omega. You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, you okay?
Okay. Yeah.
You okay with that? Yeah. No, it's supposed to be cryptic. You okay with that? Sorry.
Yeah. I'm fine. But I like the decision. I like the booking. I do think that was definitely a time constraint where they had something planned. It's like, we don't have time for this. Let me just fall off the ladder, because they rushed off the air. And love this comeback for Hangman Adam Page, who continues to be a big star. But the critique I have for this match is they had too many spots where somebody was in position to either climb the ladder or go for the title, and they chose to either go through a personal grudge, or Lance Archer was standing in the ring. Nobody's in the ring. He could have literally just climbed that ladder and gotten the chip, but he waited for Jon Moxley to come out, and it just makes the title seem like this title needs to be treated as everybody in this company wants to go through heaven and earth to get to this title. And I think it should be the reverse. If somebody has a feud like Andrade and Pac, it's like, oh man, he just put that personal grudge aside to go get that title, because that's what takes precedent. But they did not tell that story multiple times in this match. Oh, they're going through their personal grudge instead of going for the title. And I just don't like that storytelling at all.
Well, even commentary noted it very early on. Andrade, he's got nobody else around him. He's up there with an arm's reach to the chip, and he decides to do the sunset flip thing. And I think JR was like, and JR does not let these guys slide. He actually, JR even calls it. He's like, well, he could have just grabbed the chip right there. Yes. Also, JR at the finish of the opening match, when all four of the guys do this, the V trigger to Jungle Boy, they're doing the recap, and JR goes, and all four of them hit Jungle. I don't know how all four are in the ring at the same time. Again, ripping the lack of enforcement of rules.
That's what he's there for. And I heard that JR is going to start scaling back his duties on commentary, and there's going to be a void there, because JR does think a lot of things that are in my head just watching wrestling. And it's like, he speaks for the viewer at home. His role in that booth is, I think, captures the voice of the kind of cynical viewer. And a lot of people are thinking the things that JR just kind of blurts out. And I love it, actually.
Oh man, fun stuff. It's going through a couple of fun chats. Yeah, Ethan Cruz. Yeah, I'm surprised Matt did that leg drop after he said he regret doing them for a long time. Yeah, they add up. It's like, I remember when Fandango debuted in WWE, and he did the off the top rope leg drop. I'm like, dude, that is going to take years off your career quickly on taking that bump. I mean, Hulk Hogan's had to get a new hip, and he did it. He did it. Just.
Standing, he really didn't get much air on it, and it completely screwed up his back. And he said multiple times if he could do it again, he would just done the exploder clothesline he did in Japan, which was actually an awesome finisher if you know how to take it. So to see people jump off ladders with the leg drop, that's causing a lot of back pain.
Yeah, that's oof. I don't know. Yeah, I see some of those leg drops. Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Gerald. Host for Wrestling. Well, we have a great. I was actually saying this to Roger today. We have a great. I think this is our roster is. Talk about AEW and rosters. Our roster at Wrestling Inc. with the podcast, I think, is at peak position right now. Yeah. Alfred. Raj is always in his great spot. We have Jack Farmer on Mondays, who Jack's his own flavor, but I think he's fun to watch. Issa offers great perspective. Obviously, Glenn is the OG of the Wrestling podcast. There's really a lot of great stuff going on.
Yeah, shout out to Chuck Carroll. We got a loaded roster, man. Raj isn't going to be able to afford all of us for very long. So no. He's going to have the Tony. We're all going to come to AEW or something.
He's going to have the Tony Khan problems eventually. All right, I'm crumbling up the notes. That's it. That's going to do it. Alfred, give me the final plugs. What do you want to put over?
This is Nasty. Got a piece coming out on MLW Fightland tomorrow. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on YouTube. Subscribe. I am 3 subscribers away from 1,000, meaning I'll be monetized, and me and YouTube will be business partners. Pro Wrestling Bits on YouTube. Let's get over 1,000, ladies and gentlemen.
I want to give a shout out to Hot Pockets. I tweeted my random tweet of the day was, and this was from real experience at lunch. I said, "There's no greater pain than biting into a Hot Pocket,
Yes,
and it exploding on your face when it's still too hot."
Oof.
And Hot Pockets replied to me with a fire sign. So Hot Pockets, if you're listening, come at your boy. We can do I'll be happy to do the Justin LaBar Hot Pocket tour. I'd be happy for Hot Pockets to be involved in I'd be happy to have Hot Pockets, all the different flavors here on the podcast. I feel like there's a lot of natural segues we can do with the Hot Pockets. So just want to.
God, that'd be great.
Cheap plug for the sponsors. I know HelloFresh isn't sending any Hot Pockets out, but it is what it is. All right, I know. Follow me at Justin LaBar. I think this is the last you're gonna hear from me this week. I'm not on Busted Open this Friday, taking Friday off. We're back next week for Monday Night Raw. Back next. Well, I guess Alfred and I'm not back next Wednesday. I don't know what's gonna happen next week with Dynamite being moved, but nonetheless, follow Wrestling Inc. Like, subscribe. Leave a comment, leave a rating. All that stuff can really help us. We really appreciate it. For @ThisIsNasty, @Justin LaBar. Be safe. Good night. We'll talk to you soon.